Hi, everyone. I just want to welcome you guys to our Mindanao workshop. My name is Szendzial. I am the president of Filipino Cultural School. We're really excited to have you guys all here and really excited to share with you our presentation on Mindanao. Dr. Mary Lacanlale is just getting ready and setting up. So if you could just bear with us for a few minutes. But I just wanted to give you a little background on FCS. FCS has been around for about over 50 years. We have been here, trying to educate the youth in the community on Filipino culture. We are a nonprofit organization run entirely by volunteers. And this summer, there was a little wrench thrown in our summer. We usually have in-person summer classes, but due to the situation, we wanted to continue to try to share Filipino culture with you in whatever way necessary. So although we couldn't have our in-person classes, we did put together a few workshops for you. And without further ado, if Dr. Mary is ready, I will hand things over to her. Thank you, Dr. Mary.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm really excited to be here and to share my research with you, as well as to give you some appreciation for the different cultures of Mindanao. I know that maybe you know a little bit about it just from doing folk dances and stuff, but I was hoping to share with you some personal stories of my research there, because I spent a lot of time with the Maguindanao people and a lot of time studying the cultures of Mindanao, but also to just like more broadly give you an idea of how they're living today. That's sort of part one of my talk. In the meantime, if the kids just want to listen but want to do something while they're listening, we sent to your emails some coloring worksheets, and I think there's 3 or 4 of them, and you can print those out and they can just color along while they're listening and watching. So if you have any questions, or like there's something wrong, like you can't hear me or you can't see the slides, just make sure to go ahead and type it into the chat bar. And we have Ate Polly here and Ate Sharmaine facilitating the workshop, so they'll respond to you if I'm not able to get your question right away. So we're still kind of waiting for a few more people to come in, but I'm going to start sharing my screen with you and make sure that everyone can see the slides before we begin. So if some of you don't know me, I'm Tita Mary. I'm the Vice President of FCS for this year. I've been so happy to serve Tita Cindy. She's been an awesome president. And also my 2 kids go to FCS. Can you guys just wave hi? This is Gavin and Norhanna. Yeah, they're here on the side, so they're listening. But they've been in FCS for, I think, this is our 4th year. And they've, just benefited a lot from learning about Filipino culture. And I hope that other parents here are, appreciate that as well. It's so amazing, our graduation every year when we see the kids get dressed up and, they perform for us. So that's been the best part of FCS for me as a parent. So the way we'll do this is that you could stay on mute for me while I'm talking, but we will have like a couple of places that will ask you to unmute and ask questions, or later on when we learn how to wear a Malong, you could show that to us, as well as your coloring book. So there'll be a couple of places where we'll interact and ask questions. So it's not going to be quiet the whole time, but for the most part, you'll stay on mute and you can raise your hand, and Ate Polly and Ate Sharmaine will keep an eye on that. Because we have kids and FCS is definitely aware and vigilant about our children's safety. If for any reason, there's something called Zoom bombing, if that happens, we'll end the session and then we'll send you an email so that, just in case, it's not going to happen, I don't think, but just in case that happens, we would end the session and then send you an email with some instructions. So that is one thing. And if there's any technical difficulties, if we, get logged off or whatever, we'll, probably end the session and also send you an email after that. Okay, but without further ado, I have some slides for you about Mindanao. So we're gonna look at the culture and the music mostly. We can't cover everything, so just know that this is kind of an introduction to the culture of Mindanao with a little bit of history as well. All right. So right before we get started, you could have your coloring worksheets and pencils ready, and your do-it-yourself Malong if you made one with the instructions. Well, before we talk all about Mindanao, first, let's ask you guys, what do you know about Mindanao? Can you raise your hands if you've ever heard that word before? Mindanao? Can you raise your hand like this if you've ever heard of yeah, some of you have, but it feels like some of you have never heard the word before. If you have your map with you, the first thing to probably talk about is like, where is Mindanao? So if you have your map with you, let's look at where Mindanao is, and you can get started coloring where it is on the map. So you guys are familiar with the map of the Philippines, right? Yeah, everyone, can you nod, kids, if you've seen a map of the Philippines before? No, you haven't? Really? Okay, well, here it is, and that's, hopefully you have your coloring worksheet, but Mindanao is the southernmost large island, and we see the large landmass here that's colored in red. So you can start coloring that in, but if you also notice, there are islands to the west of Mindanao, and this is like part of the region, right? It's not part of the island, but it's part of the region of Mindanao, and that's called the Sulu Archipelago. Now, the Sulu Archipelago is actually closer to Malaysia. This is Malaysia here. And if you notice, like some of these islands are really, really close to Malaysia. So maybe some of the culture that we're going to see today seems a little closer to the cultures of Malaysia and Indonesia than we would be familiar with in the cultures of Luzon and the Visayas. So sometimes that is like what some of the cultures of Mindanao look like to some people. Have you guys ever done one of the dances from Mindanao? Like, have you ever seen the Szendzial before? Do you know what that is? Have you heard that? The Szendzial with the princess and the prince, and they have an umbrella, and they dance between the bamboo poles, just like tinikling. Yeah, some of you seem familiar with it, so I'll take that as a maybe. If you're familiar with, how about tinikling? Are you familiar with tinikling? Can you nod if you've seen that? Good, okay. So we're gonna approach it that way. What are like the similarities between some of the cultures of the Philippines, but also are they also different? So the Szendzial and the tinikling are similar in that they have bamboo poles, right? They're dancing in between the bamboo poles. But the Szendzial is a little bit different because it's not about a tinikling bird, but it's about a princess who gets stuck in an earthquake. And she's dancing between the bamboo poles, and that represents like the shaking of the ground, and that she's trying to save herself from an earthquake. I'll show you that in a little bit if you're not too familiar with that. But that dance comes from Mindanao, specifically the Maranao people. So we'll talk a little bit about who the Maranao people are in a second. When I was growing up in Boston, Massachusetts, I didn't learn very much about the Philippines. But one day in high school, my mom's sister's husband came to live with us from the Philippines, and he happened to be a professor, but also he happened to be a Tausug. Now, if you remember the islands that I was pointing to earlier here, he actually grew up and is a person of the Tausug Ethnolinguistic group. Sometimes we say tribe, and that's, that's not bad, but maybe a more specific word is ethno-linguistic group, because we're basically the same people in the Philippines, we just have different languages. So it's more useful to think of us not as different ethnicities, but as different culture and language groups. So he was from there, and once he started telling me about Mindanao and his culture and the way he grew up, I just was hooked on learning more about the cultures of Mindanao. So that's how I kind of got interested in it. Now, I didn't think I had any personal connection to Mindanao because, of course, my family, my dad's side of the family is from Bulacan, which is Tagalog. My mom's side of the family is from um, Ilocos Sur, so she's Ilocano. So I was like, I don't have any relationship to people in Mindanao. However, my dad's side of the family is, their last name is Talusan. And we never knew, like a lot of Filipinos have Spanish last names, so we never knew why our last name was Talusan. But one day when I went to go to Mindanao, Cotabato City, I'll point out where Cotabato City is. It's over here on the western part of Mindanao. When I went there, they were like, "Oh, you're a Maguindanao." And I said, "No, I don't think so." And they were like, "But how come you have a Maguindanao last name?" And I said, "I do." And they said, "Yes, look, here's a phone book." And they opened up the phone book, and there was like a bunch of Talusans in the phone book that I didn't know. So you never know. You might have some connection to Mindanao in some way. All right, so the people of Mindanao, I mentioned a few. I mentioned that I worked a lot with the Maguindanao people, and they are one of the groups that follow Islam. And Islam's been in the Philippines since the 12th century, so much longer than the Spanish had been there. So they are one of the 13 ethno-linguistic groups that are Muslim. That includes the Maranao, the Maguindanao, and the Tausug, which my uncle was, but he converted to Christianity. Other groups that live there are called Lumad, and this is a word that they came up with themselves, but it represents indigenous people. So if you think about people that live in either the highlands, which are the mountains, or around certain areas that are a little bit more rural and not in big cities, and that have a way of life that they're really proud of and protect from millennia, thousands and thousands of years ago. So Lumads, they include the Bagobo, they include the Yakan and the Tiboli people, and they have really distinct cultures that if we were to study them really carefully and for years, we would notice how diverse they are. But, you know, just we are kind of just getting an overview. So at first they may seem similar, but they're really, really different once you get into their cultures. So the Lumad groups, the indigenous people, um, now some of them converted to Christianity or some to Islam, but for a long time they had their own indigenous religions, and some of them still do. But just to emphasize, you know, as time goes on, things change and people adapt. So they might be both Lumad and Muslim, or both Lumad and Christian. Um, the other people that live there are settlers. So those are people from the Visayas and Luzon who have been coming to Mindanao for about 60, 65 years, even before World War II. Visayans and people from Luzon have been moving to Mindanao because there was a lot of land there. And since Luzon was crowded and farmers wanted their own land, they would move to Mindanao and are settlers, what are called settlers. So when I was traveling around, it's really interesting because a lot of settlers, they come from the same town. For example, I was in Sarangani province, and this village, they had all come from Ilocos Norte, like from a village in Ilocos Norte. They kind of recreated their village in Mindanao. So they all knew each other and lived there. So a lot of times Cebuano is the language that people speak between themselves. So in order to communicate with the settlers, who are mostly Visayans, they people use Cebuano a lot for the lingua franca, or the common language. But people do speak Tagalog too. Cotabato speaks Tagalog mostly. So depends where you are in Mindanao, what the lingua franca is. Okay, so in Mindanao, as I said, the different groups, whether it's Lumad, Muslim, or settler, they live in different parts of Mindanao. I'll just point this out real quick. The Tausug are here in the Sulu archipelago, and Jolo is one of the large cities in there, and you might have heard that word before. The Yakan are from um, this area in western Mindanao, and the Tiboli are in southeastern Cotabato. I'll show you photos of what the people's dress looks like in just a second. And the Maguindanao live here in western Mindanao, and then the Maranao live in around Lake Lanao. So my point is that traditionally they had certain homelands, like maybe, 100 years ago, everybody in Jolo would be a Tausug. But now, of course, we have a lot of people moving from place to place. So you can meet someone who's Maranao on other parts of Luzon or other parts of Mindanao. They travel and they work in different places, so they're a lot more mobile now. Okay, let's start with the Lumad groups. The Lumad groups, as I said, can be Bagobo, and this is here. This is a long time ago. I look much younger, but the Bagobo are a Lumad group, and they have like gongs. I'm going to show you my Kulintang later, but as I was saying earlier, it's like variations on a theme. So the Lumad groups might have gongs like the Muslim groups, but they play them a little differently and they sound different. So there's like similarities and differences. You can see here their traditional costumes. They have beautiful weaving and patterns, and they mix and match patterns together. Sometimes they're not all woven. They're made out of cotton, but with some traditional coloring, like gold is a prominent color, red is a prominent color, blue is a prominent color. So nowadays, you know, not everything they wear is woven, which was the traditional way of wearing it, but they have, you know, influences that are between different cultures. So those are the bagobo. Here is a Taboli woman, and this is when I went to Davao. There's a Taboli museum where they'll show you the different instruments and their traditional weaving, and they'll talk to you about their customs. So it's really nice to be able to go to a place like that where the indigenous people are in charge of their own museum. So this Taboli woman is playing a hegelong, and it looks kind of like a guitar. Does it look like a little bit like a guitar to you guys? A little bit, yeah, kinda. It has two strings, and it has been around Southeast Asia for thousands of years. So it is definitely something that Filipinos from early on were playing. It's found in other parts of Southeast Asia, and even though it looks similar amongst different groups, they definitely play different types of music on them. So for me, I've been studying it a long time. I can tell what, you know, a Taboli piece sounds like versus a bagobo piece versus a Maranao piece, but they have a similar instrument, but they play different music on them.
Tita Mary, we do
Yeah.
have a question from Winifred and Vincent. How
Sure.
similar is the culture and language in the Sulu archipelago to Malaysia?
To Malaysia. So in the Sulu archipelago, they have some similarity with Malaysia, but the thing is, for hundreds and hundreds of years, they've come up with their own lingua franca, the language they speak between people. And so their lingua franca is Bahasa Malaysia. So when they're trading with each other, they don't speak the same exact language, but they've learned a common language, which is Bahasa Malaysia. But the Tausug people, because, and other seafaring people, because they go back and forth so much, they do have some similarities with, more similarities, I would almost say, with the cultures of Malaysia, but they don't have the same language. It's very interesting. People keep their own languages because they want to remain distinct from other people. So if you think about the Philippines, why do we have so many languages? And the thing is, it's part of our cultural identity. So we can learn each other's languages, but we also want to retain our own individual languages and dialects as well. So it's kind of on purpose, if you think about it, to, you know, sort of keep one's traditions. But yeah, that's a really good question. They are definitely, they have a lot of movement between Malaysia and the Philippines. In fact, some of those islands that are really close to Malaysia, nobody knows exactly which country they belong to. In fact, sometimes the governments have disputes about who those islands belong to. So it's really interesting. Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, we have another question. Are the weaving patterns particular to area?
So the quick answer is yes. The weaving patterns are particular to certain groups. Like languages, weaving patterns also communicate identity. So people do want to have distinct patterns from each other. You don't want the other group knowing what you're saying to your in-group, and you want to be distinct from them. I use this example in my class. This isn't a perfect analogy, but think about if you belong to a school and you show school spirit with a t-shirt or sweatshirt, you know, you want to be distinct from other schools. And it's not, yeah, it's kind of like that. You want to have a distinct identity. So the weaving patterns, the short answer is yes, they're distinct from each other. They can even be distinct between different groups, tribes, for a shorter word, between people, Bagobo, who live in this area and this area. So they can be. However, nowadays, because a lot of their life ways have been either uprooted or they had to, you know, work in industries just like we work in, there's not a lot of time for weaving. And so you're gonna see people just wear cotton fabrics of different, you know, groups. And it's really groups like dance troupes and cultural groups that try to keep these things together. So a lot of the young people just go and work in regular jobs. And so not a lot of time for weaving and stuff like that. But yeah, once upon a time, they were very distinct. You could really, really tell what tribe they belong to and where they're from. So other questions? Okay, so here's the Tiboli people, and this is a Tiboli woman here. They live around Lake Cebu, not Cebu like the island Cebu, but Cebu, S-E-B-U. And I went up there to that lake, and there are people that, you know, still wear traditional clothes, but then again, there's resorts, and the young people go work in their resorts. They wear jeans and t-shirts just like everyone else. But then every once in a while, you will see them do performances for tourists. And so this is one performance. The first performance I'm going to show you is what one of their dances looks like. And they are in front of a camera, but they're not performing it for an audience of tourists. So you're gonna see them dance like towards each other, because dances and rituals dances are rituals, and they weren't entertainment all the time. Sometimes they really had deep meaning. For example, to take care of each other in the community, to help someone grieve if they lost someone, to help them heal. And so this one, you're gonna see the women dancing towards each other. Okay, let me stop that there. And then this one is, oops, a Tiboli woman also, but she's performing for some tourists. And instead of like dancing towards each other, now they're dancing towards the audience. And sometimes they emphasize like a story behind the dance to make it easier for people to understand. Sometimes community dances can last all night and sometimes for days. So for performance, for tourists, they have to cut it down to like 3 minutes. So just to let you know that there's a process at work when we learn dances from indigenous people, that it belonged to one context at one time, but today we kind of shift it towards a different audience and on stage. So here's a Tiboli woman performing for an audience. Okay, if you noticed all the jingling sound, I mean, their beadwork, their metal beadwork is so beautiful. This is a belt that's entirely made of metal beads, and it's not just decoration, it actually is part of the dance, and it's part of the music because you can hear it. Any questions about the Tiboli real quick? You can save it for later if you don't want to ask now or if you're still thinking. Okay, moving on to the Tausug. I said they were from the Sulu archipelago, and they are a Muslim people. And you might have heard of their dance called Pangalay, and that's the one with the pointy fingernails that they put on their the tips of their fingers, and that's to accentuate the movement of the hands. And this is a documentary film that my friend did, and he spent like many months with them. And so these are dances that they would do for each other mostly. They could last for days, by the way.
Celebration na may 3 araw, 3 days, 3 nights. Tapos magkakaroon po ng pag-igal, pag-jamo, pag-sayaw, pag-tagungguan.
Okay, so that's one example. Let me just play another one. If you notice the audience, the kids, they're just sitting down right there next to the adults, and they're being entertained, but they're also learning about their culture. Okay, so those are the Tausug people. And then the people that I studied the most, because as an ethnomusicologist, you really have to study one culture in depth before you study a lot of other cultures. So the Maguindanao are another people, Muslim people, and Maguindanao means the people of the flooded plains. So where they live, there's a lot of flooding of the fields because there's a large river. So they call themselves the people of the flooded plains. I wanted to show you these photos because they're doing things that we, you know, recognize as Filipinos. Again, the theme of similarities and differences. They have this performance called the Dayunday, and you could see them laughing. They're holding a guitar. This is a karaoke session that I took a picture of my friends that I was staying with. And so they do a lot of the things that other Filipinos do. It might be in a different language. The songs might sound different, but they mostly do the same kind of celebrations that we do. Remember I said that I found my name in the phone book? Then I had to find out what does my Talusan mean. And Taluskano is like tuloy po kayo, like tuloy kayo, Taluskano. It's the same, like come in. That's what it means. So Talusan is to come in. So I was super thrilled to finally find out what my name meant. Okay, so the Maguindanao, what do they do? Like I said, the similarities and differences. Do you guys know what this looks like? What does it look like to you? What Filipino food are you familiar with that it looks like? Anyone?
I want to say suman.
Yeah, not bad. Suman is something we're familiar with, has rice and is wrapped in a banana leaf and steamed. Similarly, they have a similar thing. This is called the pastil though. And these are, I took this photo, Maguindanao women preparing for a feast for the dead, and they're wrapping suman. Okay, they call it pastil. But the fillings are different. Sometimes they're sweet. This one is made out of chicken because they don't eat pork. But it has spices that I would say remind me more of like Indonesian, Malaysian food, a little bit on the spicy side. You know, the filling is something that reminds me of like Indonesian or Thai food or something.
Tita Mary, we do have a question from Grace Talusan.
Oh.
And she said, regarding our last name, backwards, it's nasulat, which means to write, no?
Interesting. Yeah, that is Talusan backwards. I haven't ever heard of a last name that's Nasulat, but we could look more into that. Thank you. Okay, so the different other foods that are similar but different to Filipino food found around Luzon. Do you guys know what this is, or what do people in Luzon or the Visayas call it? Do you recognize that? Ginatan? Ginatan, yeah, ginatan is something they eat too. Bananas, coconut milk. The women spent all day making it one time, and everyone was just so thrilled to have it. So ginatan, they have something that looks like tinola, the chicken soup, but it's with coconut, and they like burn the coconut a little bit, so it kind of has this like smoky taste to it. And then seafood is huge there because they have a river and they have the ocean, so they eat a lot of seafood as well. And sometimes it has coconut milk in it, that burnt coconut that I was talking about. Okay, so this is a kanduli, and I attended this, I took this photo, but you could see some of the food that we made. Okay, I didn't help make it. I was mostly taking photos. I'm like, oh, sorry, can't help, gotta take photos. So they made the kanduli, and then an imam blessed it, and it was for the remembrance of a person that had passed away. It was their 40th day anniversary, so we got together and remembered them. Okay, so what are other Maguindanao traditions? They still do this, not everyone does it, but there's a healing ritual called kapagipat, and it could last for days and days, depending on how sick the person is. And this is not my video, but here's one that took place, recently, so we know that it's still going on. And they play the Kulintang for days, and people dance to a piece called Tagongo in hopes that dancing will help the person heal. And you'll see like decorations up, they have food offerings as well to help the person get better. Okay, so that's Tagongo. They'll play that for days, and they'll dance for days and have food and kind of like support the person who's ill in hopes that they'll get better. Another festival that they have is called the Sharif Kabunswang Festival, and that celebrates the person who brought Islam to Maguindanao, converted their prince, their sultan, to Islam, and so they, in 1350, so a couple of hundred years, well, 100 years before the Spanish came, 200 years before the Spanish came. And so they do these, decorate these boats, and they go down the river, and on the boats they have Kulintang ensembles. I actually got to go on a boat, and during Sharif Kabunswang, I can't find the video, how awful, but it was really beautiful to see the water with all these boats. It takes place every year, so if you're ever in Mindanao in December, in Cotabato City, they still have that. A celebration dance, people might call it the warrior dance. Now it's mostly to show strength, and so they'll have a sword and a shield, and they have contests now for the Sagayan dance. Okay, so this thing here, that's actually a horse. So if you think of like the Chinese lion dance, it's kind of what it is. There's two guys in there, and they'll imitate a horse and then kind of do some athletic tumbling sometimes. Like I said, their traditions change because they have competitions now, and so they add new things to their dances, and over the years it just gets more and more competitive and athletic. I did a lot of my research in Maharlika village, which is in Metro Manila, and this is a village of people from Mindanao, like who have come to Manila and settled there. So like people from Luzon and the Visayas going to Mindanao, people from Mindanao actually go to Luzon. And so this is a village in Bicutan. This is the family that I stayed with for 18 months. This is their daughter, Norhanna. I stole her name and named my daughter. She's in college now, though, so she's not that little anymore. And this is the Blue Mosque, and this is a condo. It's an apartment building in Maharlika village. So I did a lot of my research there. But I did go to Mindanao about half a dozen times.
Tita Mary, we do have a question from Winifred and Vincent.
Sure.
What was the extent of Spanish influence in Mindanao?
So interestingly, the Spanish were never able to conquer Mindanao. The people of Mindanao fought off the Spanish for 333 years. And it wasn't until the United States came that Mindanao became under the control of the Philippines. The Philippines was thought of as that nation that encompasses the three regions. But yeah, they fought off the Spanish. And it wasn't always violent. Sometimes the Spanish would trade with them, but they were never able to fully bring Mindanao under their control. The sultans and the princes were very strong and had connections to Malaysia. So, and they were great seafarers, so they protected their island that way as well. All right, you guys ready to wear your malong? I'll let you get your homemade malongs or get your patterns and color those. But if you have any questions so far on what I covered, you could also ask them now in the chat bar or raise your hand. Oh, I see another coloring worksheet of Mindanao. Great job, guys. Anyone else? Okay, great. Thank you for holding those up. Those are amazing. Okay, so you guys got your malongs or your malong patterns that you're gonna color in? Yeah, okay. So the malongs, I said earlier, are woven, but nowadays they're made out of cotton and printed. So unfortunately, weaving is a dying art, but weaving is amazing. I mean, I've only watched one woman for a little bit doing it, but essentially they are putting one thread at a time. So really, they have to have knowledge of like the pattern and how to get the pattern on there because they're just doing it one thread at a time. So this is a Maranao weaver. You could see the pattern emerging here. This is a Bagobo weaver, and they work with abaca, so it's not cotton, but it's a different thread. And the women put the loom around their back and hold it that way, and then they bring the thread in and weave it through one at a time. I have an example of Tiboli weaving, and she's singing at the same time.
bengigo no hulu adudu bang tayong ni bang warag mudi magono matan itu magono matan katao bang ni kumo gono dudu malwe ku gonon salimbu.
Okay, so we'll share my slides with you, and I'll leave the links in there, and you can access them later if you want to watch the whole thing. This is a lot of the patterns are geometric. That means that they're, symmetrical. And so this is a Yakan pattern, and you can use whatever colors you want to color it in. You choose one color for like the lines in between. This one's gold. Gold is a color for royalty. Also purple. They really like contrasting colors. So they're bright and contrasting. So for the Maguindanao, their motifs are also symmetrical. And this one is called Paco Rabong, and it's a fern that's growing up and growing down. So if you look at it closely, it's like, oh yeah, that does look like a fern. So a lot of them are stylized nature shapes. And the Maguindanao, traditionally, like I said, things change today. They have new patterns, but in the past, gold was prominently a color for royalty, for the sultans and the children of the sultans and princesses. Today, people say bai, which means lady, like dai if you're from the Visayas, or indai. So bai, they use bai. But once upon a time, that was just for princesses. So, but now everybody calls each other bai. So the Maguindanao, they like the darker tones. And this is one that I bought in Cotabato City a very long time ago. This is called the lightning pattern, and it's just stripes going up and down, but kind of like in the shape of lightning. And this was actually woven. This one too is a Maguindanao pattern. Kind of looks almost Indian in a way. There is a lot of Indian influence throughout Southeast Asia. So this has the dark colors, the purple and the blue and the green, but then punctuated by gold, which is a color of royalty. Not that I'm royalty, I just bought one. Okay.
Tita,
go ahead.
Mary, yeah. Speaking of the weaving, we do have a question.
Sure.
Is this art still being passed down to younger generations?
Unfortunately, not really. Every once in a while, there's someone in the community that really takes to it and wants to study it. However, nowadays, NGOs, cultural organizations donate to weavers who want to form schools and pass down to the traditions. So I would say on an everyday level in people's homes, it's not being passed down, but there is definitely new attention to this tradition. For example, there's an artist, a Maguindanao artist, who takes these patterns and puts them into new fashion designs. So that'll keep it alive. But yeah, I think it's really important to study this tradition and learn more about what they mean. So, okay. So those are Maguindanao. The Maranao have Malongs too, Malong Alandap, and that's the one with the broad stripe in it. So this one, ooh, some people have Malongs? I see people holding them up. This is awesome. This is called the Langkit. The Maguindanao don't have this, so this is an example of the different styles. The Malong Alandap by the Maranao, they have this stripe called a Langkit, and the designs on it are ochre. So it's more flowery than the Maguindanao. The Maguindanao are kind of more geometrical, but this is more flowery. Ochre are the sort of like, almost like a paisley looking teardrop shape. They, if you think of the Sarimanok, which is the mythical bird of the Maranao, this has an ochre pattern. You can find like ochre patterns everywhere in Maranao society. And so this stripe, if you have a Maranao Malong like mine, that goes in the back for women. I never knew this because remember I studied the Maguindanao, so my Maranao friends were like, that stripe, it goes in the back. And I was like, oh, okay. I better get that right. Okay, so let's try it several ways. You guys ready to try the Malong and try different ways of wearing it? Yeah? So I'm gonna stand back. If you can't hear me, just tell one of the coordinators so they can tell me that if you can't hear me anymore. So Norhanna, are you gonna help? Norhanna is wearing the one we made at home to show you that you can use it. As long as your bed sheet goes out like your arm length here. Norhanna, do you want to show them? Can you stand back? It was a little big for her, but essentially I pinned a bed sheet together and you can kind of make them all on. So the first, there are different ways that men and women, can you see me better? Can you still hear me? Yeah, okay. Men and women wear them. So with my Malong Alandap, I'm going to wear it first on my waist. So I want to hold it out here. And put your hand here and hold it against you. And pull it over on your waist. And then just simply roll it down. And try to keep a nice band on it. Norhanna, are you doing it? So that's the simplest way. Just have this one fold on it. Keep the stripe in the back. And there, you have a full-length skirt. Can I see people doing it? Anyone else want to show me? Are you getting it? Okay. And then you can also wear it here, up above, below your, under your kili, right here. And pull it again this way, and then just roll it down. And there, you can wear a shirt, long sleeve or short sleeve, and you can wear it just like this. Okay, now if you want to get fancier, you can hold it in the middle and fold one side over and then fold the other side over. And now you have sort of like a V in the middle here. See? Kind of makes it a little bit more fancy, and then just fold the top down. Yeah. Can I see other people doing it? Ooh, Tita, Cindy, you're doing a great job. Here, Norhanna, can you see you do it? Okay. Norhanna's following along with me. So another simple way, so a lot of the royal women, because they don't have to like do anything, they just look pretty, they just simply hold it over their arm. And that's how you know someone's a princess, because they're just holding it this way. It doesn't have to be functional because they don't have to work, you know, so they just hold it this way.
Tita Mary, speaking of, we have a question from Grace Talusan. Are these only worn by certain gender identities?
So both men and women wear malongs. They just wear them differently because men wear malongs all the time when they're at home just hanging out. If they're going to work, they're going to wear jeans. But yeah, when I was there, a lot of men wore them, especially if you just get up. It's kind of like a robe. Just throw my Malong on and go outside. And so how did men wear them? Let me show you in just a second. Let me show you one more way of wearing it as a princess, which is to hold it just like this. Yep, just take it and then twist your arm around and do this. Okay. Come here, Nani. Can you show them? Over your, this way, there, and just hold that under your keeling. There you go. Okay, so those are, different ways women can wear them. Up here, over here. And then you can, let me show you how a man would wear it. If you have yours with you, hold it like this, and then pinch the middle, and then fold it in half. Okay, men, a lot of times they don't wear the full length dress, they wear it halfway. And so you folded it, you pinch the middle, you folded it in half, and now it's a shorter skirt. So I'll fold it again like I did before. Just push this side here and roll down. And then they will pull the fold up and tuck it in. So that's how a man would wear it. Okay, and on my slides you can see how these two men, this is Gavin a few years ago, but how these two men are wearing it. Okay, and then, okay, what about some decorative ones? If you don't want to wear the whole skirt, if you have a Malong with a nice pattern, find that pattern and fold it until it looks nice. So for this, I folded it in thirds, like this, to show off my lungkit. And then I'm going to wear it as a sash. Okay, and Tita Cindy, did you give up? So what about functional? You can put a baby in it, although maybe you shouldn't, but you could use it as a baby Bjorn. You do it this way, you put their legs through it right here, little infant, and you can put them in here. Make sure you secure it though. And then to make a bag, you fold it in half. And can you give me something to put in here, like a pillow? Hold your arm up like this. And put whatever you're gonna put, your cell phone, your purse, whatever it is, put it in the middle. And then tuck the sides, tuck one side in, tuck the other side in, and then just roll the top. So now you've got a purse. Ta-da! Okay.
Awesome. I wanted to catch every step, and when I was trying to do it, I missed the steps. So
it does take some practice, but I can always help you, anyone more after this. So there you go. And then every once in a while, if it's raining, you're caught in the rain, you can wear it as, you can make an umbrella out of it. This is really easy. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. You just hold it over your head. Right, easy peasy. But a really cool thing this is a lot more complicated, but it's a jacket. So I'm gonna hold it up behind my head like this, and my arms are like this. And then I just put my arms behind me, and now I have a jacket. Now you can even have pockets if you fold it right. See? Okay. We're gonna take a break in, actually it's time for our break, but while we're doing that, I'll just play a video of the different ways that you're wearing a malong, that you can wear a malong, but if you need to, go ahead and take like a 5-minute break. Okay, so you can think of some more questions, and we will, before we go, we'll do more Q&A about 5 minutes before we finish. But for now, we're gonna play some Kulintang music for you. Kulintang is a ensemble of gongs, and in the Philippines, amongst the Maguindanao and some of the groups we covered, Kulintang is an important part of their traditions. So I learned the Kulintang when I went there to study. This is my guru, Danny, and he lived in San Francisco, but he's a Maguindanao, and he taught basically all of the Kulintang players in California. So the Kulintang, here's the ensemble, and it's also the name of the instrument. So they say Kulintang ensemble, because the ensemble includes babandil, which is the timekeeper. I'm gonna help you learn how to play that. Dabakan, which is the drum, and there's one back there. And agong, which is the large gong. Can you show them, Norhanna, the agong? There's an agong back there. So I don't have all the instruments with me right now, but the ensemble is called Kulintang. The instrument is called Kulintang. So Gavin's gonna play a Maranao piece called Kasulampid. And Kasulampid means to crisscross. The kids can color in their Kulintang instrument, and there's like an okir pattern on the Kulintang instrument in your coloring worksheet, so they can color that too. Okay, Gavin, Kasulampid. Okay, so that was Kasulampid from the Maranao, crisscross. It refers to what he was doing with his hands. Now I'm gonna play a Maguindanao piece for you. Can you still hear me when I'm talking? Yeah, okay, good. So the Maguindanao piece, this is called Sinulog Kamamatuan. And people play it when they are remembering someone a lot of times. And they also just play it for fun. But originally it meant like to remember someone. And okay, so Norhanna is going to play the timekeeper, and the pattern is this: long, short, short, long, 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 short, short, long, long. So you can actually play along with me and try and follow the pattern that Norhanna is doing. Can you still see her? Yeah? Long, short, short. Thank you, thank you. So those two pieces that I played, you're probably wondering how we learned to play them. First of all, there's lots and lots of different pieces. Those were just a couple of examples. But basically, I mean, if you've ever taken piano lessons, it's kind of the same way. You learn one little part of it at a time. And eventually, after you practice, you can like put the whole piece together. So what we learned are different patterns, and then eventually, once we memorize those, we have a whole piece. Okay. Oh, that was quick. So if you have any questions, do you have any questions about Kulintang music? I'm curious to see if anyone's even heard of it before.
We don't have a question about the music right now, but we do have one about the Malong. From Winifred and Vincent. Is there a way to get one that supports local textile makers?
Yes, actually, there are a couple of Filipino-American groups. There's a website called dailymalong.com, and I know that they support local weavers. There's a couple of people on Facebook, and I can get those for you and send them to you. But yeah, they say that they give a portion of the proceeds to local weavers to support them.
Wow. And so one question about the music. Are there always the same number of drums?
Yes, usually there's only one drummer in each ensemble. So the Bagobo have a Kulintangan ensemble, the Tausug. They're found all over Mindanao. There's usually only one drummer, but the number of gongs can vary. So for example, the Kulintang could be 8, in some cultures it's 6. A lot of cultures it's lying down on a frame, but in Bagobo style, they hang them up on a rack. You saw that picture where they were hanging like almost like a Christmas tree shape. So the number of gongs change between different cultures. In Maguindanao culture, they have like a couple of unique gongs that they use for communication. So they send messages with them across the river. But yeah, the number of gongs can be different, but usually it's just one drummer. So the dabakan over there is the drum for ensembles.
And we have one more question. So earlier you mentioned that mythical bird. Could you talk about the sarimanok?
The sarimanok, oh yes, yeah. It's a motif. A motif means like a theme that people, artists use on just about everything. I mean, from carvings on houses to umbrellas to instruments. They have design. The sarimanok is a design, so it's like a mythical bird that I mean, kind of like a phoenix, right? That, yeah, it's like, it's mythical. But you might know it from like the Bayanihan. The princess wears a sarimanok on her head. Supposedly that was made up. My Maranao professor friend said, no, that's not true. They don't wear it on their head. So it just kind of becomes this icon of Maranao identity. But the way in which they use it, I guess, is really specific. They put it on the house, you know, for protection and for good luck and so on. Yeah, the sarimanok is really beautiful. I love what new artists do with it too. You know, as Filipinos, we can take some of these elements and design new things with them. And it's really creative. And the Maranao, Maguindanao do the same thing. They're always evolving.
Wow. We do have another question, Tito Mary. Do we know of any place or people we can contact in order to learn the music? And is this music in danger of becoming extinct, like the weaving?
So a few years ago when I was there, that was the complaint of older people, because a lot of the younger people, I mean, they're playing keyboards, guitar, you know, karaoke, and only a few that maybe are in the country, because it is loud music. You're not going to play it in your apartment in the city. Although I guess we're playing it in my house in the city. But anyways, so that some of the rural people do. And the great thing, the new thing that they have are these competitions. So now young people are motivated to play it. But the crazy part is that they play it so fast, like crazy fast, like it's a competition to play it really fast. And that is how traditions evolve. As young people want to play the music really, really fast. Once upon a time it was slow. Older ladies like me played it, so we'd play it slow and stately. And today a lot of the young people play it faster. But I think that's how traditions are. They always evolve. Other questions? Oh, to learn it, right. We do have people in Southern California that teach it. I have friends that that teach it, and I can give you their names and contact address. He is amazing, way better than me. Started when he was 16. My friend, Dr. Bernard Ellerin, who's also an ethnomusicologist. So I can get that to you. He can, you know, he gives lessons over Zoom as well. Other questions?
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So I feel like a lot of high school to college and above, like Philams might know Mindanao culture more from stuff like PCNs or cultural nights. Is there like one or two, I guess, things that you want to kind of debunk in terms of like the, I guess, beliefs about Mindanao culture from like PCNs and like Bayanihan and all that?
Yeah, one of the myths that I really want to debunk is that they never smile. It's such a terrible way to represent people. They're human beings when the occasion calls for it. In fact, just like any other Filipinos, they laugh and make jokes all the time. And really they're not even, the jokes are just like, you know, except they're in a different language, but they're just, so they laugh, they smile, they're loud, they have, you know, all kinds of jokes. And I really want to debunk that myth that they never smile. If it's a solemn occasion, they do look solemn. But when it's a festive occasion, just like anybody else, they're laughing and smiling. So that's one. Another myth that I want to debunk is that they call themselves Moros. I mean, nobody's blaming Filipino Americans for not being informed. It's just that I think there's ways to rethink what we know about Mindanao culture. And so they call themselves the Bangsamoro. It's more like a political entity that says we're together, we stand united, but they don't say like, I am a Moro. So they say I am a Muslim, which isn't an ethnicity either, but I'm just saying that that's what they use. So I'm often asked, am I a Muslim? And that not my religion, but my ethnicity. And do I speak Muslim? And I was like, no, not really. But I do say some words. So you can say, if you want to say, hello, how are you? We say, you know, kamusta kayo? They say, ni batadnan ka. So that means, how are you? And if you want to say good afternoon, mapia malulam, that means good afternoon. If you want to say thank you, it's shukran. That's Arabic, but that's what they use to say thank you, shukran. So unfortunately, I think our time is coming to an end, and I was having so much fun that it just flew by super fast. We still have time for a couple more questions, but I do want to put this up. That if you would like to support Filipino Cultural School in any amount, you know, 5, 10, 20, $1 million, that's fine too. But you can use Amazon Smile to support us, or you can donate directly to Venmo or PayPal. And if you're interested also in holding a leadership position or volunteering, let us know. We're really excited that Filipino Cultural School continues to grow and give quality cultural education to our youth. So please email us. We'd be super happy to hear from you. So Tita Cindy, do you have any final and imparting words? And are there any final questions that people want to ask or comments? I'd love to see your coloring. Do you want to hold it up, kids? Anything that you colored over the last session? Can you hold it up? Put it near. Oh, that is really cool. Kenichi and Kenji, beautiful. Oh, very colorful. Marisa.
Like it. Look at
Very
Melodies.
Melody, look at you have contrasting bright colors. Beautiful.
Good
Oh,
job.
thanks,
Oh,
everyone. I
yes.
love that you're holding it up.
Ooh.
Andrada family.
Beautiful. Rabani
August,
family, thank you for holding it up. Very nice.
Pearl. Good job.
Very nice. I love it. Well, you can, if you ever want to color those again, you can print them out and color them. Oh, look at the Kulintang player. That looks great. I love it. That's terrific.
Well, I just wanted to let everybody know, this has been a great workshop. I learned a lot, certainly. Thank you guys all for joining us. Like I said, if you have any questions about Filipino Cultural School, we have a website, filipinoculturalschool.org. If you would like, I said, we are a nonprofit organization. If this workshop was being put on, usually the presenter would get about $20 per presenter, but Dr. Mary and all of our presenters have been wonderful enough to donate their time to put together all this research for these workshops. Another thing that I personally worry about is I worry a lot about a lot of these Filipino arts that are becoming lost because a lot of us Filipinos are so Americanized and go towards that. So it's really wonderful that you guys want to try to pass on to your children the culture and learning a little bit about it. And if you guys are interested in trying to keep some of these Filipino arts alive, please do research in trying to continue it on, because it would be a shame for a lot of just traditional Filipino arts to get lost. But other than that, yes, so all our workshops will be shared once the editing is done, so just please bear with us. Sharmaine, you have anything to say?
Yeah, and also you can feel free to take pictures of your coloring pages or how you figured out how to wear your Malong on Instagram. And you can feel free to tag us, Filipino Cultural School, on Instagram. We would love to see your art and how you like to wear your Malong.
Yes, please send us, email us your pictures, tag us on Instagram. We would love to see what you guys have done and be able to share it with others. So thank you guys all. Any last questions before we go? No?
I want to thank some of the people that joined us today. They're from BFAB in Boston. They're a collective of artists and writers. Thank you so much. I don't want to out Bren Bataclan, but he is the artist that did these beautiful paintings behind me that I display proudly in my house. So I just want to say thank you and hi.
Yay.
Oh,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.